Have you ever felt a deep sense of heavy loneliness, even while scrolling through hundreds of social media connections or sitting directly across from someone you deeply care about? In our hyper-connected modern world, we seem to have fully mastered the digital technology of constant rapid communication. Yet the profound human connection we desperately crave often slips effortlessly right through our cold fingers. Many of us approach romantic relationships with a very specific and almost commercial mindset. Spend stressful years meticulously searching for the perfect, immaculate partner. We firmly hope that once we finally find the right object of our affection, love will magically happen to us. We foolishly treat love as a rare sensation to blindly fall into, much like stumbling upon a hidden buried treasure. We rarely treat it as an active, complex skill that requires daily difficult cultivation. When the intense initial spark inevitably fades away, or when our tired partner fails to meet our invisible heavy expectations, we often feel deeply disappointed. We quickly move on to the next person, firmly convinced that we simply chose the wrong object. This endless, exhausting cycle of fleeting, intense romance and subsequent bitter heartbreak leaves us entirely depleted and profoundly disillusioned. We actively, in countless hours, improving our sterile professional skills, our outward physical appearance, and our complicated financial portfolios. Yet, we rarely dedicate the exact same intense, deliberate effort to understanding the complex mechanics of human affection. We suffer severely from a fundamental psychological misunderstanding of what it actually means to connect intimately with another vulnerable human being. Today on the BookDream channel, we are stepping far away from the shallow romantic advice of modern magazine articles to completely explore a profound perspective from the past. We will gently unpack a masterpiece of psychological historical insight that boldly dares to ask a very uncomfortable question. What if our repeated painful failures in personal relationships are not actively caused by a lack of suitable partners, but rather our complete lack of emotional preparation? We are going to deeply explore why mature, lasting affection is not something that simply happens to you passively. It is rather something you must actively build with your own scarred hands every single day. Published originally in 1956, The Art of Loving securely remains one of the most important psychological texts of the entire 20th century. It was carefully written by Erich Fromm. He was a truly brilliant German-Jewish psychoanalyst and a deeply observant social philosopher. Fromm did not formulate his complex psychological theories in a safe, comfortable academic vacuum. He lived painfully through the terrifying historical rise of the brutal Nazi regime in Europe. He personally witnessed the devastating, violent consequences of deep, widespread human alienation and mass destructive conformity. Escaping eventually across the ocean to the United States, he carefully observed a very different kind of tragic social emptiness. He saw a rapidly industrializing cold capitalist society where busy people treated literally everything as a pure calculation. Even their most intimate romantic relationships were sadly reduced to harsh transactional market exchanges. Fromm starkly realized that modern consumer society aggressively teaches us to view ourselves entirely as shiny commodities, perfectly packaged for a marriage market. We desperately obsess over becoming more physically attractive through strict diet, expensive fashion, and high social status. We falsely believe that if we just upgrade our personal resume enough, someone will finally properly consume us. Fromm violently and entirely rejected this tragic, empty commercialization of the vibrant human soul. He boldly argued that genuine, lasting love is absolutely not a passive sentiment that you blindly trip and fall into by accident. Rather, it is a highly complex, extremely demanding, and rigorous daily art form. Just like learning to actively play the violin or mastering difficult brain surgery, it requires your absolute dedication. It demands intense daily discipline and continuous deep theoretical study. You cannot pick up a heavy wooden violin for the first time and expect to play a flawless, beautiful symphony immediately. Yet we constantly expect to execute perfectly mature romantic relationships without putting in any deliberate psychological practice whatsoever. This fundamental tragic mismatch of our modern emotional expectations is exactly why we suffer so deeply today. In Erich Fromm's truly timeless psychological work, we quietly discover three profound and highly uncomfortable deep insights. The first major revelation completely destroys our modern fairy tale illusion of the perfect magical soulmate. Fromm clearly states that the deep problem of human affection is not primarily the problem of the object, but rather the severe problem of the faculty. We incorrectly believe that finding the right flawless person is the only actual difficult part of romance. We foolishly assume that once the perfect physical target is properly acquired, the actual daily act of loving will happen completely automatically. This fragile delusion is exactly like buying a beautiful blank painting canvas and impatiently expecting it to paint a masterpiece itself. True relentless challenge lies entirely within your own daily capacity and mature emotional faculty. The second profound insight highlights the crucial psychological difference between toxic symbiotic attachment and mature human devotion. Immature young affection always follows the deeply selfish emotional logic of, I currently love you entirely because I need you to survive. It is a very desperate, anxious clinging born directly from crushing inner emotional emptiness and intense fear. Truly mature human connection follows a completely different and healthy internal logic instead. It boldly and calmly declares, I need you specifically because I actively daily choose to love you deeply. It is a sturdy union that fiercely preserves the distinct individuality and personal freedom of both distinct people. Third core insight outlines the four absolute, unbending requirements of genuine, lasting genuine affection. Fromm heavily identified these four pillars as diligent care, strong responsibility, deep respect, and proper accurate knowledge. You cannot honestly claim to cherish a fragile, beautiful flower if you constantly forget to water it with careful daily attention. True respect means looking clearly at a person and wanting them to freely grow exactly as they naturally are today. It absolutely does not mean aggressively forcing them to mold into the convenient quiet shape you selfishly currently desire. Without these four active sturdy pillars functioning completely simultaneously, what we blindly call romance is merely a destructive temporary illusion. How then do we directly translate this heavy and demanding psychological theory into our messy daily routines? The first highly practical step is incredibly counterintuitive for our fast-paced modern dating culture. You must completely stop desperately searching for the perfect, immaculate partner immediately. Instead, you must aggressively focus daily on slowly becoming a person capable of producing genuine affection. Stop actively asking if the person sitting across from you checks every physical box on your demanding mental checklist. Start honestly asking if you are emotionally disciplined enough to properly support their unique individual personal growth. If you are constantly chronically bored or deeply empty when you are entirely alone, no romantic partner will ever magically fix your internal void. The second actionable step involves the incredibly difficult daily practice of mindful, active listening. When your vulnerable partner or tired friend is quietly speaking, stop silently formulating your clever response in your impatient head. Put your heavy, distracting smartphone completely away in another entirely different room. Give them the absolute rare, precious gift of your undivided, uncompromised, careful attention. Deeply believed that profound quiet concentration is the absolute highest form of human respect. The third and perhaps most vital application is the difficult ongoing daily cultivation of unconditional self-love. We are very often our own cruelest and most unforgiving harsh inner critics. We mistakenly believe that self-compassion is simply a lazy form of arrogant narcissism. Explicitly taught that if you cannot deeply respect and properly care for yourself, you are entirely incapable of properly caring for anyone else. You cannot consistently pour fresh water from an entirely empty and heavily broken glass cup. We must learn to sit quietly with our own deep anxieties and gently forgive our own fundamental clumsy human flaws. The difficult path of true human connection is rarely the flawless cinematic fantasy we see constantly displayed on bright movie screens. It is a messy, highly demanding, and sometimes deeply painful lifelong psychological journey. There will inevitably be long days when you feel entirely misunderstood and emotionally exhausted completely. You will proudly face heavy quiet moments where your patience is severely tested and your selfish ego demands to aggressively win a silly argument. But in those dark, isolated moments, I urge you to gently remember Erich Fromm's quiet and demanding wisdom. Genuine love is the only truly satisfactory and entirely sane answer to the profound problem of human existence. It is not an easy, cheap lottery ticket you scratch off on a lucky Friday afternoon. It is the steady, quiet, and very deliberate daily choice to build a sturdy wooden bridge toward another complex human soul. When you stop angrily demanding that the outside world constantly entertain you, you slowly gain incredible, powerful emotional freedom. When you finally stop carelessly treating vulnerable people as emotional commodities, you step bravely into a much warmer actual reality. A vibrant reality where quietly giving genuine affection is vastly more joyful and empowering than desperately begging to continually receive it. Take a quiet, reflective, peaceful moment tonight to look sharply inward at your own heavy emotional armor. Consider what small, disciplined, brave step you can softly take tomorrow morning to actively practice the difficult art of true caring. If this brief exploration of historical psychology has provided you with a comforting moment of deep reflection, please remember to subscribe and like this video today. Every single week on the BookDream channel, we actively strive to bring you a rare piece of timeless wisdom to help you peacefully navigate this complex, chaotic world. Thank you profoundly for sharing your very valuable time and quiet contemplation with us completely today. May your quiet evening be filled with deep, lasting peace and genuine human warmth.